And of course, thank you guys for being here. I know this is optional content, but love to see so many people continue to sign on for these for the quarter. So thank you. I hope you find value in them. And if you have thoughts on topics for a future quarter, we have kind of a bunch we slot up and line in the queue, but we would love to hear your thoughts on other things that would be helpful to you. So please don't hesitate to share those through the suggestion box or snag one of us on the leadership team to funnel that up. We would love your thoughts. And feedback on these if you don't find them after we do them. If you're finding one was particularly helpful or not as helpful, no feelings hurt here. Please let us know. So, okay, we'll jump in. For those of you I haven't met, for some of the new faces to the team, my name is Molly Wasty. I'm the president of McSteen. So I'm going to go through today's town hall, and feel free, the rest of the leadership team, to interject with things I miss as we go through the presentation if there's anything you want to harp on. But also to the team, if you have questions, we'll have a little time at the end for questions, but you can also pop in throughout, unmute yourself, or throw it in the chat box. Feel free to ask those questions throughout. I know we've got a little more time in this format than we do in our monthly stand-ups, so I definitely want to catch those questions as we go. All right, so today we're going to talk about location surveys, the work that most of us on the team, I know we hopefully a couple of the boundary folks signed on to. I think I saw Selena and a few others, but we're going to focus on location surveys, and I think it's impactful for the boundary team as well. But today we're going to chat about that and our process. So a little bit on our agenda, just a quick overview. We're going to chat quickly about who our clients are, the intent of a location survey, talk about some examples of transfers that went wrong from a survey perspective and things that we caught as the McSteen team and where we kind of saved the day on those transfers. We'll go through the steps of a location survey, the cost of a location survey and that breakdown, and then delivering on our client expectations. So we'll start, as we start all of our meetings, with our purpose statement: securing the land where we live, work, and play. So what are we doing every day? We're empowering lenders, title teams, and property owners with fast, accurate surveys and inspection so that every deal moves forward with confidence. Okay, so I know last fall, hopefully a lot of you that are on were also able to attend our call last October with John Dyer from Nova Title, where we talked about title insurance and surveys. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on title insurance, but I thought it was helpful to prime the conversation today. So our clients for this side of the business are primarily title companies. And what is a title company? What do they do? As it says on the slide here, and I'm kind of quickly reading you some of these bullet points, but then we'll get into some discussion. But the core role of a title company is to verify legal ownership of the property. And I think that one's the most important. Those other two bullets, they're checking for liens, unpaid taxes, title issues, and ultimately issuing title insurance to protect the buyer and lender. But really, they're making sure, that first bullet point, that when a property transfers to a new owner, it was free and clear to transfer. That's their job, and that's what they're issuing insurance on. So they're checking to make sure no one else had rights to the property that weren't disclosed. No fraudulent sellers. That's a big thing right now. We were just talking at the beginning of the call, Bill and I, about the issues going on with in Lorain County, some cyber hacking, but there's a lot of fraud going on in transfers, out of state sellers that are posing, they're saying they're out of state, but they're selling us property that's in the state of Ohio or Indiana, and they're posing as the seller through identity fraud. It's the title company's job to catch those types of things. Or maybe there's an heir to a property that maybe a brother and sister co-own a property, and the sister is selling the property now that the parents have passed away, but the brother didn't want to sell. Those are the types of things that a title company is trying to catch in their search and make sure that that property is able to transfer free and clear so that the new owner has full rights to that property when it transfers. But here at McSteen, the second part of this slide, how we support them in that is there's a lot of survey related issues that the title company, besides those high level ownership issues on the property, they're also insuring through survey concerns. So our job is to help them with that piece of the insurance policy, to identify encroachments or access issues or easements. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I know I haven't hit that last bullet point, which I'm going to come back to, that liens bullet point and our role in that. But really what I want to harp on and drive home today on the right-hand side is our work and the work we do every day on these location surveys helps title companies ensure a clean, insurable transfer of property. And so if any of you on the call are homeowners, obviously that's critically important to us in a homeowner space. We want to know that we have outright ownership to our property. Title provides the insurance for that. McSteen helps to allow them to issue that insurance policy. And so that's why our role is so critical to home ownership. And then to circle back to that last bullet on the left-hand side, I wanted to just touch briefly, because this comes up a lot, and I thought this is a nice format where we have a lot of people on the call to talk about our two-trip construction surveys, because this is critical to the title insurance world as well. So on new construction, as you guys all know, when we go out to do those two-trip constructions, this happens more in Ohio than Indiana, but we go out and verify that vacant lot trip, and then we're going back for the foundation when it goes in to make sure that the foundation is appropriately located. But a lot of times we don't talk about why we go out at that vacant lot visit. Obviously, we're making sure there's no encroachments to start before construction and all of those things. But the bigger purpose of that, and why it's sometimes called a no work affidavit or a no work survey, is because the lender wants to be sure via the title company. So title company's ordering it, but it's really protecting the lender that no work has started on that property before they close and lend the money on that property. And that's why they're time sensitive and why we have to go the day of closing. We need to be there that day because they want to know that up to the last minute before they're going to disperse funds and the lender's going to take on the liability of issuing money on that property, that no work has begun. And the reason they want to make sure no work is started is because they want to make sure there's no lien that could be filed on the property. So for instance, if someone had started excavating or digging a hole at the property to build this house, then the excavator could have the first lien position ahead of the lender if there was ever a default on the mortgage, meaning the excavator would get paid out before the lender would. So that would be someone first in line to get paid before the lender. And obviously the lender has the most exposure on any loan. So they want to make sure they're in the first position to get paid. And so that's why those are time sensitive. That's why we do them. And that's why it's critical to the insurance process as well as the lending process. So hopefully that part's clear. If you guys have questions, like I said, feel free to unmute and ask or catch one of us at a later date to chat that through. But that's come up a few times recently. I thought it was worth highlighting in this conversation today. Okay, so a little bit more on title, and then I promise we will move into surveys. But just very quickly on this slide, I won't go through everything, but this is a Schedule B, part of the title commitment that comes through to us and part of the title insurance process. But on the left-hand side, again, what is title insurance? It's an insurance policy that protects the real estate owner and lender from financial losses due to defect in title. So that's title's job. But there's a survey component, as we discussed. So this is kind of a reiteration. There's these pieces on the right-hand side that are kind of called out as these survey exceptions: discrepancies in boundary lines, shortages in areas. It talks about liens, encumbrances, easements. Our job is to, if without our location survey, the title company can't insure through those survey pieces of the policy. So they're able to issue their survey affidavit based on our survey work. So without that survey, they can't provide the lender or the homeowner. They can do a title policy, but they may not be able to cover some of the survey exceptions. And so our job is to give them the survey so that they can issue the full policy with survey coverage. Okay, so getting more into our stuff and our side of it a little bit more closely. This is a quick snapshot of a boundary survey versus a location survey. And I know most of you guys are probably familiar with some of these differences, but I thought it was still a good high-level overview and to catch it for some of our newer folks, but two, for just highlighting for the whole team as we frame the discussion today about location surveys. Obviously, on the left-hand side, the left column here, boundary surveys, the boundary lines, we are calculating that in our boundary department. And on the location side, we are taking the legal description that is in the deed that's transferring. So we are showing property lines, but only as they are described in the legal description. We're not doing any calculations on those boundary lines. State of Ohio requires on the boundary side, the next line there, the major improvements only be shown near the property line for boundaries. We do a little bit more than that, McSteen standard here for boundary surveys, but that's the requirement that we show things that are near the property line versus a location survey. We're going to show all major improvements because the title company and the lender and the homeowner want to know. And then moving through the legal document, court of law, of course, a boundary survey will uphold in a court of law where a location survey will not, for neighbor disputes, things like that. And strong assurance on property lines for a boundary as opposed to a location survey. Again, we're not doing calculations on boundary lines. But most importantly, and what we're going to spend our time on today is this last line. We're going to highlight potential title issues in a mortgage location survey that may or may not be highlighted on a boundary survey. So that is our job and the number one priority of a location survey. And when I talk about this stuff externally with realtors or with title clients, because I do this a similar presentation with a little bit different information to realtors quite often, the biggest thing I want to get across externally and internally at McSteen is that a location survey is not just a lesser version of a boundary survey. They are truly separate products that are both highly valuable. And it's just understanding the value of a location and when to use it when done correctly and to a high standard as we do them here. So we'll talk about that today, but just recognizing the differences in the products and what each brings to the table. I love this slide. I'm going to talk about it a little differently than I do. I also share this slide with realtors, and Marcus helped me mock up this this location survey. This is a real location survey we did, but with some added detail to it. But for us internally, I like to share this for a couple reasons. One, I know as we're also busy doing our day-to-day roles, we don't always get to see the final product. So for some of you, maybe have never seen the final survey if we're out in the field doing field work. I know there's been a lot of cross training between field and drafting now, so you see a little bit more, which is great. But I just wanted to make sure to share, this is a final copy of a McSteen location survey so that you guys could all see what that looks like and what our clients are seeing as it's being distributed and finalizing the product. And then I thought it was good to highlight some of these things that we're doing in the field and that we're putting on our drawing and drafting that we may not even, we're doing them because we're trained on doing them and, we're efficient at doing them, but maybe not realizing the greater impact or where that rolls up. So I thought we could chat through that a little bit today. So of course, we're going to show our deal information that working down the left-hand side of this, this diagram here. We'll kind of go through the points. Deal information, high level, we're always going to show the title company, the client, and the property address information under the house there. Most importantly, or one of the most important things I would argue is that next one down, major improvements. So things like the house, the garage, driveways, if there's a pool, fences that are encroaching, things like that. All of those major improvements, that's the first thing the title company is going to look at when they get this drawing. So they're going to know not only where the major or see the major improvements, but also where they lie in relation to the deeded descriptions. So the front ties and the side ties you guys are pulling in the field and that are getting added to the drawing in the drafting department are critical for the title company to understand where those improvements lie in relation to the deed legal description that's transferring for the property. So that's critical for title. They also want to know, next point down, about ingress, egress, and joint drives. So access is a huge part of conversation with title. They want to make sure there's clear access to the property. And also, of course, the joint drive, shared drive conversation is a big one, because if there isn't an agreement in place for that, that may cause some title insurance concerns that the neighbors haven't agreed to how they're accessing. If they have a shared drive, they want to make sure there's something that accounts for that so that the new ownership isn't going to have an issue with accessing the property if the neighbor pipes up and says, well, we never actually agreed to have this as a shared drive, or actually they're supposed to be maintaining the drive. So all those questions need to get answered before transfer. And by our team displaying it graphically to title, they know the correct answers to go talk to the property owners about before the transfer happens. So our job is to show it, and then we pass it off to title for them to have the conversation and make sure everything is appropriately documented before the transfer goes through. The next one down there is easements. Obviously also critically important to know where the easements are on the property. This one, I know it's kind of small on the screen, but that utility easement there was likely a platted easement. So of course we will show the easements if they're platted, or if it's a recorded easement that the title company provides us, we'll show those on the drawing as well. So they'll want to make sure, in this case, that 5-foot easement and the front ties there were 25. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the building setback line, which is my next talking point, but we'll get into that too. So they've got the 5-foot easement at the front. And then if you look back towards the house, there's the 25-foot building setback. And our house front ties there are 25.5 feet. So of course, title is also interested in making sure that the house sits behind the building setback line. So I just wanted to show you guys how some of these things come through the drawing and how title is reading our reports when they get it. So that hopefully it connects a little bit more what we're doing every day to what the end product is and what the client is using it for. The other critical one, most of the stuff on the right-hand side, I like to point out to our clients more, like the compass, the scale, the tolerance, obviously the surveyor stamp at the bottom. But the two other things for our internal team to chat about today are real time. So on the top right there, we're obviously going to all these properties real time. You wouldn't believe how many times I have a client ask me like, oh, are you guys actually going to these properties? Absolutely. State not only requires it, but we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't. And it's important that we timestamp these, that little time under the picture there with the date that we were there on April 7th at 12:50 p.m., because that also is important to insurability. So when you guys are snapping your house pictures and marking what time you're on site, that is important for the title insurance policy, because they want to, if we were there on 4/7 and reported that this is what the property looked like, and then 4/8, the house burns down, well, we were providing assurance through 4/7 at 12:50 p.m. We weren't providing assurance on April 8th, the next day. So that's important for insurance policies as well, that these are dated and time-stamped. And then the other one that I talk about a lot in externally is this utilities outside of an easement or right of way. So when you guys are out there looking for overhead wires or utilities that are running through a property, the important thing of note there is that if there are utilities that are visible evidence running through a property, that could be indication that a utility company has an easement or something that runs through, that they may have access to that property, potentially right through the house. So it's important for us to notify title of that so that they can make sure that they're documenting and searching for any easements recorded or unrecorded that might impact the property, so that there isn't that potential for a utility company to come through or any other party to come through and say, hey, we actually have rights to knock your house down and put a new utility line in at the extreme end. But we want to make sure that we're notifying and paying attention to things like overhead wires or utilities that are outside of the easement as well. Okay. Still doing good? Anyone have questions on any of that stuff before we walk through a couple examples?
I just have a quick question, Molly. So on the utilities that you was talking about, do you want us to locate them, or do we just go ahead and make a note that we see like a manhole in the backyard or something like that?
Yeah, Marcus, can you elaborate a little bit more on what you guys need in drafting? Like, you know, obviously this one has overhead wires at the back of the property. There's not real specific locations or ties to it, Brad. It's a good question, but I'll let Marcus so that so I don't tell you false information as far as what the drafting team needs.
Yeah, typically, you know, any overhead wires that are like crossing the property, or if it's a gas line, or yeah, Brad, that's a good example too. You know, if there's a drain or a manhole that is not within, you know, an easement that's on the property, yeah, I would certainly notate that. Specifically if it's not in an easement. You know, if you're confident that it's right behind the garage, or, you know, 2 feet off the right of way and within the utility easement, you know, that's not a super concern. But yeah, I mean, if there's something that's on the property and there's not an easement that you're aware of, you know, I'd certainly locate that. And the same could go for, you know, you come across maybe like an oil or gas well, you know, that might be super far out, like in the property. I think that there's a little bit of leeway on those where, you know, we're not expecting you to get, you know, super solid ties to, but it definitely needs to be notated, you know, on your drawing that that's there. And in cases like that, you know, if it's a larger acreage where there's a high tension tower, or like I said, like a gas well, you know, we can certainly place that in for the aerial, but we still need your field notes to reflect that it's actually there.
Thank you. Does that answer?
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
Awesome. Good question. Thank you. And Bill, did you have a question? Loads? Bill Loads? Oh, he might have frozen. We'll come back to you, Bill, if you can still hear us. Okay. So location survey saves. This is on transfers that have gone wrong where a location survey kind of highlighted the issue. And bear with me, I know many of you have seen this example before. We have shared it, but it's such a good one that I wanted to share it again for any of the new folks on the call. And upcoming in the next couple slides, I've added another example. So if you've seen this one, hopefully the next one will be fresh. But this really drives home the point of why we do what we do. Whoops, there we go. I think we got everybody back again. So this is a mortgage location survey we did in 2019. And we went out to the property. We navigated there by the property address, but appropriately completed the field work by legal description, not by the address, which is so critical to this. And if we haven't said it enough, we'll just keep saying it and saying it again. We have to do location surveys by legal description, not by property address. Because when we pulled up to this house by navigating there by address, we pulled up in front of the house that's shown on lot 61 here out to the right. But when Greg was doing the field work, he appropriately measured down via the legal description from the intersection and ended up, he was, as is shown on our drawing here, the legal description described lots 60 and 59. And so he was measuring down 70 feet of frontage and got to lot 60 and 59 where the legal description said we should be for our location work. And the house wasn't there. The house was one lot over in lot 61. So what happened was 17 years prior, the builder did not do a boundary survey and they put the house on the wrong lot. So, and had we not caught this, or had we just pulled up and done this by address, you know, we would have found some corner pins, we would have measured, would have assumed we were on lots 59 and 60, and the deed would have transferred. The new owner would have thought that they purchased the house and the land it sat on, but really they purchased 2 vacant lots and the physical house improvement that was 1 lot over. So these are the kind of things that a location survey is designed to catch. Our job is to confirm that what's transferring on paper on the legal description in the deed is actually transferring in reality. So that's our whole job with a location survey. There's a lot of nuance. Of course, we're looking for utilities, we're looking for easements, we're looking for all of those things. But our primary job is to make sure that what's transferring on paper matches what's transferring in the real world. And without that, you know, that would have transferred and gone through and probably eventually caused a problem. But that's why we're doing this. And that's why we're doing them by legal description, is to catch these kind of things. So, and I think many of you may know from previous conversation, but what happened here was then they were having to work out whether they were going to do a lot swap and someone was going to switch lot 61 for 59, or whether they were going to purchase an additional lot, that lot 61. So they had to clear all that up before this could transfer. And I'm sure there was a lawsuit involved with the builder, but so that's the kind of stuff we're trying to catch and prevent from happening. Bill, did you have a question?
Yes, last week, the high tension power lines and the pylon was next to the property, but it was not on that property. And I had Marcus, and he did a real good job. They put a note on the side about the high tension wires going parallel with the sideline. And I thought that was critical because there could be static electricity if they put up a playground set and the kids are playing on it or something. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So just good to note all of those things that are around or surrounding, particularly when they impact the property as closely as that does.
Yeah, and I think that one may have been a special instance, but that's certainly something to keep in mind. You know, there was a tower and overhead wires like directly behind our property. And, you know, it's probably a good 75 to 100 feet, like off like the rear property line. But in this case, there was an actual easement, that abutted, our property. It may have not been on, actually the subject property, but even in cases like that, you can clearly see like the tower, like in the photo of the house, that we send out with the survey. So even, for field crews to just observe that, like you don't have to go crazy, like locating stuff or anything, but it's certainly nice to observe that there are overhead wires or there's a tower, directly behind our house. The more information, that you can put on there, I think is always helpful, to the drafting and, specifically to our clients too. So.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so just one more quick example, guys. This one is more recent. We did this one in Indiana too, so I like to show one for our new territory as well. We did this, as it says at the bottom there, in November of 2024 on Fletcher Avenue. Another thing that a location survey caught that would have transferred and caused issues, the deed would have transferred incorrectly. We got a description that called out lot 200 there on our drawing. But as you can see, half the house was off the property. Our frame dwelling encroaches 18 feet there. Our frame garage encroaches 33 feet. We've got all kinds of issues. So we went back and let the title company know. And they said, yeah, looks like we've got a problem, and had to go back and do some more digging on the title side. And it came back to us in March. Now, this is March of 2025. And they had to rectify. Several transfers had gone through with just lot 200. So they had to go back to find where lot 199 was dropped off the transfer and get that shored up and fixed before it could transfer then finally in March. So they contracted us again to go back out in March and re-perform the location report. And we did that. The house then, of course, was encompassed by lot 199 and 200. The garage was as well. Still have some other little encroachments going on, as you can see, but those were minor. The fences, things like that, they could get through the transaction. But for several transfers, and I think this is critical, particularly in Indiana, where location reports aren't used as frequently as they are in Ohio, for years that transferred like that. And ultimately someone could have claimed ownership to that lot 199 or come in and cause issue with that. So that's the reason, again, just to highlight a little bit of a few examples of why we're doing these and why it's so critical to home ownership ultimately. I'm speeding up a little bit here just to make sure we can get through some of these slides. But I think, again, if you guys, the questions you guys have are awesome, critical, and great discussion. So don't hesitate to interrupt, but I'll try to move through my talking points a little quicker. So steps of the location survey and the role that you guys play in this every day, just really think highly of our team and of what you guys are doing and what we're bringing to the table for people, and how impactful we are on a day-to-day basis in people's lives. And I know sometimes we're out there measuring houses and working through the drafting queue and handling emails in the inbox and kind of lose sight of the bigger picture of why we're all here and why we're doing what we do. It's easy to lose sight of. I lose sight of it myself often, but we really help secure the American dream. So our job in our little pyramid here between the prospective buyer, a realtor, a lender, a title company, an underwriter, and ultimately McSteen, our job is to help people put people in homes every day. So when you guys are out there, I know we can't always have that at the forefront, but I'm hoping that it's at least tucked back there a little bit as you're working. And I know it's busy and we're kind of trying to churn through things, but we aren't just measuring houses. We aren't just putting this stuff together on paper. We really are helping to secure home ownership for people. And how we do that is through everything you guys are doing each step of the process every day. And I just want to spend a little bit of time. And I know, again, most of you know that the job is moving through these stages, but I thought this was a great day to highlight how impactful we all are on each other on a day-to-day basis. And that all starts even prior to the order getting put in our system, really starts with our sales team. By developing new client relationships and maintaining our existing client relationships, that's really keeping the lights on and what allows us to pay our payroll every 2 weeks, and keep the business running. So what keeps us all employed is our clients, and that happens through the efforts of our sales team. And keeping the client at the focus is really what's kept us in business for over 55 years. So we're very proud of that. We keep trying to do that. We're working on growing our sales team. As you guys know, we put a lot of pieces together last year. So that kicks us all off before we even get to the order entry stage, which is amazingly critical as well. Sometimes we overlook how important that step is, but really success of our whole process starts at the very beginning, and getting that accurate information in with James and what he does every day leads to a smooth order progression and less issues for the field and drafting teams. And then, of course, it passes over to research, which I'm sure the field team can speak to how important that is when the proper research is on the job, so that they can move through their role efficiently in the field because they have the information there for them. Improper research, we could end up at the wrong lot or have issues in time delays with the product, things like that. And then, of course, going to routing, we're all about optimizing workflow the best we can. I know you guys get interruptions to your day and you sometimes have to ping pong around a little bit, but the best we can get things routed to the right people, then we're hopefully delivering on time for our clients and getting that repeat business back again to keep us all working every day. From there, it goes to the field. And I think the important thing I wanted to highlight here that sometimes we don't always think about, but really you guys in the field, obviously what you do is so critical to the product. You're the eyes and ears on site, but it's also a reflection of McSteen outward, and the professionalism is equally important to the job quality. So when and it's hard, you guys deal with a lot of stuff and you get angry homeowners. We're constantly talking about how we can improve that for you, because I know how difficult that can be to get your job done. But the more we can present ourselves professionally on the job site, that all filters back. I got I don't know if Ty's on today, but I got a compliment about Ty recently. It was just really nice. I ran into someone and he was like, McSteen, your team was on our site or on my personal property to do my location report, and your crew was friendly, professional, and just we had a really nice conversation. And that meant the world to me, and really appreciate you guys trying to bring that to the table every day. I think it leaves a really lasting impression. And that funnels up to the title companies as well when we get that feedback back through title. And that, again, is just one more reason that they want to continue to, there's Ty, thumbs up. Yeah, so that's just one more reason that people want to keep working with McSteen and providing that opportunity to us and to the team. And then, of course, I know I harped on professionalism for a long time, but the job quality is critical. Without having accurate notes, legible notes, clear field notes, the drafting team cannot do what they need to do every day. And so hopefully the more we get that right up front, the less times they have to call you and tell you to go back again. So that is critically important as well, the quality and the legibility of your notes. Moving through to drafting, this stage is so critical. I was just talking to the customer service team about this, because we were talking about whether or not we could give verbals on just the field work. We get that request from clients sometimes, especially when we're busy, like, hey, can you just shoot me a verbal over, not on a vacant lot, new construction, but on a house transfer? They'll be like, well, I know it hasn't gotten through drafting yet, but can you just send me a quick verbal and let me know what the property looks like? So we had this big conversation of how do we want to handle those? And we ended up putting together communication to our clients that we really can't. It's very difficult for us to give a verbal, even with the best field notes, the best field work, highly accurate work being done out there. Drafting's job is really to put all the puzzle together, to take order information, the research component, the field work, the GIS, all that stuff, and make sure it fits. So it's just as critical in the drafting department and kind of that quality control to make sure that even if you've done everything right in the field, there may be something that still comes up in drafting. So it's a critical step in the process that we make sure both of those pieces are getting the time they deserve to make sure that our clients are getting an accurate product. And then, of course, going through to review and what Bill's working on every day, quality control, the final step, did everything come together correctly to uphold not only state standards, but also McSteen standards, because our standards are a little bit higher than state standards. We kind of have put ourselves in a position to be the quality provider. And so Bill does an awesome job, especially for the volume work we do, of making sure that all of that stuff goes out the door to a McSteen standard. And last but definitely not least, I couldn't find a way to put customer service above every step of this process on my slides, but I tried, because customer service is involved in everything we do, from sales before the process even starts through every phase of the process.